traders, this is Sandra with Trading Made Simple. I'm here to show you short-term proven strategies. People think trading is a one-size-fits-all market. It's not. We live trade and train daily. Let's talk trading.
And go here. All right. So what an interesting week, man. Look at all these engulfing red candles on SPY. We're on a day chart right now and just looking at a little bounce today, right? So, we really had a nice correction here. You could see where on a daily chart here, I'm showing you where the last pivot high is, which is at 608.86. And then you can see where the pivot low is, which is at 575.37. And so you can see that we're taking a little bounce here, but we actually, looking at this trend line right here, you could see where we touched it before, we bounced, and now we actually broke through this. So really looking at this and thinking, okay, now, is this a recovery? And absolutely not. We have not recovered. This might be a little bounce, just setting up for another shorting opportunity. And as we look at momentum really is showing us, wow, look at where we are right here. Whenever we break that 200, negative 200 line, that really is an oversold level. And just like when we staircase up, we are staircasing down right now. And so this is really looking very bearish. I could see SPY going to the pivot low here, right? So if we have a pivot high and a pivot low, that's technically our range on this daily chart. You could see that we broke through that up trending trend line here. And as those areas, I often say that these areas are fake out zones. And as you can see, these last three candles, right, just constantly bouncing above it and below it, above it and below it. And then all of a sudden today, we're taking a little bounce, but on the lower end. Now, depending on where we actually close today, you can see where next week's high for the weekly expected move is around 597.54. And next week's low, look at the confluence where it's actually, I mean, it's laying right on top of that level, right? Can you see that really dark red level there? That's the weekly expected move low for next week, and that's at 575.37. So very interesting. We still have momentum low. When do we actually get a trend change? Well, for me, it's really easy to identify a trend change when price can get above that 20 EMA here, right? Which I use as my reversion to the mean. And then if momentum can break above that zero line, which is right up here. If we can get those two items to coincide together, it's supporting evidence to believe that we might have a trend change, because we have been downtrending here all week long. So typically speaking, when we break the weekly expected move, then you can expect, the probabilities are that you can expect more downtrending for the following week. And so as we can see, the weekly expected move last Friday, we broke through the down trending weekly expected move. And you could see the following week, even though we had this little bounce here, you could see the following week, we just continued with that bearish movement. So same thing happens for next week as well. If we can see us actually open up on Monday above today's close, we could possibly see a bounce up to 597.20. And if we, unfortunately, if we open up on Monday below today's close, then we can actually start to see probabilities pan out for 575.22. That would be a really nice area for a bounce, but it is looking bearish on SPY with a little recovery day to day, right? Creating some liquidity into the market. And boy, this is a carbon copy for QQQs. QQQs, look at how nicely this engulfing candle goes down to the 500 level on the Qs and then takes a bounce right there. Now that little red line right here that's broken, that is showing you the last pivot low on a daily. So we're actually hitting support on the Qs and taking a little bounce. And you can see that the high here for the week is 514. The low is 491 if we break through that existing support line that we have at 500. So right now also, and look at where the VIX is at 2073. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at a VIX chart. A lot of people don't really look at the VIX's chart. I like to have it as a label just so that it, gives me some real estate on the charts. But as I look at the VIX, you can see where we had this high back in December, right? Now, when the VIX is high, the market, right, tends to take a dive. And so you could see back in December, mid-December, it really took a dive when we hit the 28 level. And as you can see, we've been flirting with this pivot high here of 2250. And we're actually starting to approach that same level. So you could see momentum on the VIX still high and looking strong. So this will be interesting to note if we get a reprieve. If we get a reprieve and it starts to go down, we can actually see the market recover just a little bit more. But as it's staying in the 20 right now, we're a bit high. So this needs to actually come down and break below this trend line, right? This vertical trend line. It needs to come down and test its support level for the market to really get a good, recovery. So VIX still looking really strong here. Momentum, as you can see up here, looking really strong and staying strong. Doesn't look like it's going to be going down below that zero line. So the way that we look at the markets is actually just opposite as we look at VIX. We're really looking for the flip side of this to see the market actually recover. And right now, we're definitely having a pretty strong, um, let me just take this off really quick, a really strong pullback. Oh, and I keep doing that same thing as I want to take this off of there. Hold on for just a second. Oh, I just can't seem to get that off. Let's see. Clear the drawing set. There it is. All right. Now, when we're looking at NVIDIA, this was really interesting to note because as NVIDIA is taking a beautiful bounce today, you can see where the momentum is really going lower here, almost at the 200 level, which is an oversold area. So not surprising that it takes a bounce. But if it does take a bounce, I mean, we could see this get as high as maybe 127 next week. And you could see where the weekly expected move is. NVIDIA looks interesting, had a lot of flow coming into NVIDIA. And so I want to see some of the other names like, let's take a look at UNH. Some of these healthcare, this is more like defensive areas. Typically, when the market goes lower, you're going to see stocks like UNH rise. And as we take a look, you can see that it too also last week broke below its pivot low and is now just kind of going sideways, but having some momentum here on the upside, looking for it to break above that zero line. Could you create an alert right here where momentum is? Absolutely. Thinkorswim allows you to do that, and I love it. Let's take a look at CVS. That was another name that popped up, had a really nice day yesterday, and it looks like a little bit of a continuation, but right now it broke above. It's a weekly expected move, meaning, hey, look, if we can stay above the weekly expected move for next week, we could see more upside on CVS. Make sure you.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Sorry about that, guys. So please remember Siri, right? Oh, God. Siri does a terrible job for me for dictating. And then look, while I'm not dictating, it pops on like it's like ready to rock and roll. I just wonder about Siri sometimes. When are they going to fix that? Anyway, that's just cracking me up right now. So as we can see, CVS start to kind of, flatline here, right? We're really at consolidation. And what I love about the consolidation is that, hey, we're looking for a break above. We have momentum. Look at this week how momentum on an hourly chart, how momentum has been strong for CVS. CVS looks good. Looks like it wants to come and test its resistance here at 67.10 and then possibly get to this vertical trend line. And if we can, we could see a bounce above that 69.85 level, looking really strong to see if momentum for the health stocks continue, right? So I'm really liking the healthcare area. There was another one I wanted to take a look at, and let's take a look at Google. I was noticing, yeah, we are really Google looking so weak even on a weekly chart. Look at how many weeks Google almost getting to its vertical trend line right here. And that area is at that 163 level. I can see that 160, like Anne Marie was talking about. I think she's got a good eye on Google right here, looking really, really extended as far as weakness. And then let me take a look at TSM. That's another one I wanted to take a look at. So TSM looking interesting right here. Also at its weekly, this is actually its daily pivot low, taking a bounce right there at support. If we break below it, we can get to 172.58. If we take a bounce right here and start to get constructive, we can really just take a reversion to the mean trade, which would be about 188. That's actually some looking really good here for TSM. But look at how low, the momentum here looks terrible. Let me look on a shorter time frame. Shorter time frame, still not looking good. This is, really tough to take these calls, right, for a reversion to the mean trade while everything is looking so bloody right now. Not really liking it. And we also, the expected move for the week, we ended up breaking it and going lower, which means the next following week we could do the same exact thing. You see right here on Friday, this was actually our weekly expected move here and breaking below it. So we might get a bounce just to see some retrieve here. But boy, this is just looking awful. I don't know if I want to take those types of trades. Let's take a look at IWM. What's IWM look like? IWM actually breaking below its last pivot low. And also, gosh, everything just looking so darn bearish. So as we take a look at the major indices, we do recognize that, hey, today's a little bit of a bounce. We're up about 29 points today, which is relatively nice. And what could we do? We could come up to 59.13 and then just lose that as resistance, right? Momentum just looking really weak right here. I'm actually looking for, let's take a look at Tesla. Oh, this is interesting. So we had this long-standing vertical trend line here, and you can see where we actually went sideways and then broke down. Really was looking for Tesla to get stronger, but this whole week took the entire market down, right? All the talk about tariffs and such. And so this still looking very weak here. So I could see us coming to test this 260.97, which would mean another continuation to the downside. This really does look like it needs to do a little pop here. I could see it get above, but not anytime quick. For next week's weekly expected move, we're only looking for the 309 area. That's interesting. We are due for a little bounce here on Tesla. But still, this could just keep dragging low. Everything just looks really weak here, guys. Had a nice day, though. Look at that. 831, that's actually a really nice day for Tesla on a little rebound. Let's look at some of this shorter time frames. 15 looking constructive here. I like 15 in 1 hour for small bounces and a downtrend. So as I look, boy, this is just cresting above the zero line on an hourly. I really kind of like that on Tesla. But boy, it's reversion to the mean trade right here at 294. Once again, looking really weak. I don't really even like that one. I saw some puts come in for Nvidia. I almost am wondering if maybe a little how about a put debit spread for this? Let's take a look at this. Just looking at institutional flow, I was actually seeing a lot of calls being bought at this low, I have to tell you. So a lot of institutions are coming in and creating some liquidity here, buying calls. But I have to tell you, this really looks like a continuation trade to the downside for next week. And I can see it get for NVIDIA right back down to 112. That's another 10 points. This actually looks good for a put play. I think I might go for, let's see here. We might take a little bounce here on a daily. Let's take a look at an hourly. This actually looks really nice for a continuation to the down trend. Um, I think an easy at the money put debit spread could be an easy play here for NVIDIA, as well as playing into the puts that have been bought today for NVIDIA continuing lower. And so as I was seeing, a lot of calls being bought up, I saw a lot of puts being taken on NVIDIA. I wouldn't mind this at the end of the day. If we wanted to automate this, we could. But as I'm looking here, I'm really looking at 116. We could come and revisit. You can kind of see this, these yellow bands here. This represents consolidation in a stock. And the nice thing about this consolidation is you could utilize this as a trading range, right? So it hit the bottom of the trading range and it's coming right into resistance, which is the weekly expected move low. If it stays, I almost want to wait till it pops up just a little bit higher, to be quite honest with you, like at the 124, 125, and take an additional short on here. We could actually do that. Let me show you how that's done. If we go over to the trade tab as an example, and let's take a 7-day out. And I was looking at some butterflies here, but let's take a look at an at the money put. So if we take a 122, actually we were going to want it to bounce over to the 124 range, right? So let's take a look at that really quick and say, if it gets to the 124.50, I want to short again. So what we would do is we would go over to the trade tab and we'd go over to the like 124, 125, because that really is where at the money is going to be when we short this, right? So we're going to click the buy button. And as you can see, it brings up a debit spread for $58. Relatively inexpensive, right? $58.60. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually program this and say, hey, look, when this gets to the 124.50 range, that's when I want to re-short this. So if we wake up Monday and we take a little bounce, then that's really what I'm looking for actually, is a little bounce for a continuation to try to drive down all these people that are buying puts already. And then what's going to happen is that's when we're going to reshort the market. So right here where you're just going to click underneath this. As a matter of fact, you wouldn't even see this if you didn't hover over it. But where you hover is right underneath symbol. It'll automatically default it in. If you hover over mark, it will just default as mark, and that's fine. The first trigger is less than or equal to. The second one is greater than or equal to, and that's the one we want to choose. Greater than or equal to. Now, on this here, where it says threshold, that's where we're actually going to put the stock price in. So we're going to say, hey, when we get to 124.50, tab out of this box right here. And then you're going to just scroll down just a little bit so you can actually see this say security is greater or equal to 124.50. So if we take a bounce on Monday as an example, and we get to the 124.50 area, that's when it's actually going to purchase a put debit spread for me. Now, once we complete this area down here, we just move up to this area and we hit, I want to buy the ask, and 00. And what that means is I just want to be an aggressive buyer of this put debit spread, but I don't want to give market prices, okay? And so what you're doing then is you're just saying, I'm buying the ask, okay? And that should be fine for this. And so as you can see, you're just going to save it. And once you save that, that's it. And if you wanted to come check it, you just come over to this little gear icon and you can check your programming. So now what we have is we've strategized by looking at the chart and saying, hey, look, we could possibly go up and hit this little area at 124, and you can see that this says 124.57, but at 124.50, if it comes up and does another retest of our weekly expected move low, which I think it will do, then that's when it'll get me into a put trade. To do what? To come down all the way down to 116, possibly to do a double bottom on an hourly, and then we might see a recovery. But right now we're going from news event to news event, right? We're going to, little battles of what he said, what she said, etc. And so when you have this type of news event, this is just chaotic for the market. And so even though we have a little bounce today, I'm looking for this NVIDIA to go lower. And that's how you would then identify this trade. Now, if we went into our working orders here, you can then see on the working orders, let's see, do we have this already set in? No, I have some other ones set in. Where is our, here we go. So now you're going to hit confirm and send. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this and it says, buy this vertical at or above 124.50. You could see that our max profit for one contract is $40. Our max loss on this is 60. But remember, we don't know what the price is going to be when this actually fills. So all this information may change, but at least you have this in when we hit it. Now, when I hit that, you could see that we have this waiting in the wings right now. And I love that you could go to a chart, you could start to strategize instead of having analysis paralysis or putting in, and I know this used to happen to me constantly. I would put in a ton of alerts. And then as the alerts were actually happening, I would just get completely desensitized from it. And what that means is that all that time that you spent actually in front of your charts doing all that homework goes nowhere because you set all of these alerts and then you just become desensitized to it. You're not really involved in what you're doing. And so this allows you then to strategize, create a game plan, and then automate that game plan. So regardless of what happens on Monday, you're already set with your analysis of, hey, even if we get a little pop on Monday, I think I'm going to be reshorting this market, and that's where I'm going to be shorting NVIDIA at. So I certainly hope that helps you for today. We have a couple more tickers that I want to take a look at. Meta looking relatively pretty decent comparably, right? Had a couple days where this looks like, wow, when you take a look at these consolidation areas and you can see price come and touch and pop right back up. How interesting, right? I mean, the confluence on the chart, you can't help but take a look at that. But look at momentum right here. Momentum looking really, really poor. In fact, I would not be going long here. But you can see that we're right in the middle of our range. You see this little channel that we have? It actually broke above the channel. Now it's back into this range of this channel. We have our pivot high right here. This actually looks like, hey, price wanted to bring it down, but it popped right back up. This actually looks like a double bottom right here on a daily. Looks constructive if we can get momentum to come and pierce the zero line. Still looking really weak here underneath the 20. Could have a little bounce on Meta. Meta actually looking very constructive compared to like, what did we just take a look at? Google as an example, right? As far as like, the difference in the chart. This one, boy, I think next week we could go down to the 163 area. Google looking really weak. And then also wanting to take a look at DIA. DIA actually looking constructive here, just going sideways on a daily here. Let's take a look at an hourly. Momentum actually rising towards the zero. And look at how the consolidation, right? Consolidation just going sideways for the last 4 days, but staying in this range. Really looking to see not only price break above that 20, and it's very close right now at 435.23, getting really close here as momentum is rising. This is actually looking pretty decent on DIA. And then let's take a look at transports. Transport's also kind of consolidating here, but momentum is also rising. We may see a little bit of a trend change here, and this is on an hourly. And we actually need the constructive, um, repair job, I would say. We need a constructive repair job to start at the hourly and then move up to the 4 hours and then to the daily. So this could take a while. And so as we take a look at this, momentum is still low, but it's getting constructive. It's moving up. And so I can see this. Let's take a look at this on a daily really quick. Next week looks interesting. We actually broke below the pivot low here. If we can regain and get above that pivot low at 213.82, we're pretty close to it right here. We could see a little bounce. And look at the confluence with the weekly expected move next week with this vertical long-standing trend line. We could see us pop right over there to make a decision point. Are we going to keep breaking to the high side here, or are we going to just go lower? Momentum's really weak here. We're still underneath that 100 on momentum. Very, very weak, as VIX is at, kind of an all-time high here since December. So really looking for SPY in the cues, right? Um, Gosh, I really do think, guys, that we had a little reprieve today, but this really looks like, unless there's some news event, unless we get some sort of trend change with price breaking above the 20, momentum coming up to the zero line. This looks so weak right here for SPY. It has a lot of work to do. So that's what we got going on. Anybody got any charts they want me to take a look at? Let me know. As we just take a look at, you know what I was looking at today? One of our coaches talking about ARC and, innovation. Some of these stocks, when we get in to a rotation, some of these stocks in the innovative space actually tend to rise. So looking to see, now you can see that this has been following through, when the market is, how we often say that when we have a high tide lifts all boats. Well, the same is true for low tide. When the tide is going out and the market is sinking, it takes everything with it. But when there's a recovery and we can actually see the market start to reverse, some of these innovative stocks can really take off. And that's what he was looking at. I don't see it right now, not with ARC anyway. We do have some consolidation here. It is near the 20 as far as a reversion to the mean trade on an hourly. We do see momentum. It needs more work here. But actually, toying on a 15-minute, not bad. Toying on a 15-minute needs to break above and stay above, and then do the same thing on an hourly. If we can get that hourly momentum to break above that zero line and price to break above the 20, we could see some of these innovative stocks maybe start to take off. I actually like the health sector way better. And, something like CVS looking so nice, right? Comparably to all those terrible stocks. You could take a look at that. In fact, if you don't already know this, real quick, if you take a look over at, is it Scan? No, Market Watch Visualize. I really like taking a look at this because you can actually see where the stocks are right in the morning as the market opens. You can really kind of see where the concentration is at a 1 second glance versus going through all of your ETFs and taking a look at all the charts. So this is a really nice way to take a look at each of the sectors very relatively quickly and then start your game plan from there. Well, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. We'll take a look and see what NVIDIA does next week. I'll track it and then we'll report back next Friday. Have a great weekend.